Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Frankie's Aaron William Freeland, and we're here to discuss the Maple Leafs and other various sundry topics. And I guess the most important thing always to talk about when you talk about the Maple Leafs is how are they doing yesterday? Aaron, how are they doing yesterday?
That's always the way that it seems to work, isn't it? They had a bit of a rough ride, unfortunately. Early in the first period, Thatcher Demko actually got put out by an Austin Matthews shot. Looks like he took it right off the collarbone. So he disappeared, and Kevin Lankinen had to come in. The unfortunate thing is,
If you're a Leaf fan,
if you're a Leafs fan, it didn't help. If you're a Vancouver Canucks fan, hey,
nice
I mean,
surprise.
Lankinen came in cold and stopped 21 of the 22 shots that he faced. The only goal that he allowed came when Riley scored with just 4 seconds left in the second period, right after the Canucks had just killed a penalty. You know, it's one of those things where he was lucky that he was still a little bit warm from the warm-up, so it wasn't that much of an issue, but it definitely didn't help the Leafs, that's for sure.
And the team once again relies deeply, heavily, and almost sometimes exclusively on the core players on their team. And the main one being Austin Matthews is having a little bit of difficulty. I don't know. Is it confidence? Is it rushing himself? He had a couple of opportunities, Aaron, that I saw, and he didn't capitalize. He had, it just isn't working for him. And now he gets to take some time off, long enough to practice with a whole bunch of American other kids to play in a tournament that's going to be happening where the All-Star break would normally take place.
Yeah, so the Leafs are going to be opening against Sweden, I believe, on Wednesday. So there's that to look forward to. Quinn Hughes is still agonizing over whether or not to play in the Four Nations Cup or rest for the Vancouver Canucks.
He's not playing.
I know that they're. Did you hear something more recent today then?
Yeah, the Vancouver captain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not playing.
Okay. Well, there you go. But this is a great opportunity actually for a lot of the players that are currently nursing bumps and bruises to try to rest up a little bit and maybe see if they can't get themselves back to 100%. So not ideal when it comes to momentum, but.
And then there's a bunch of that. All the GMs going, please don't get hurt. Please don't get hurt. Please don't get hurt. Please don't get hurt. But that's the way it goes. These games, and the thing about it is, this isn't just about the fans. This is the players. The players love to play these games.
No, that's very true. And I think for me, I'm having a hard time getting motivated for the Four Nations face-off, mainly because it feels too contrived. It feels like a second kick at the World Cup of Hockey with Team Young Guns and Team Some of Europe. It just doesn't quite feel like it's a fully fleshed out idea at this point, and it's rather disappointing because you kind of expect a little bit more out of the National Hockey League. I don't know.
Is it maybe also the long-standing team that both North American countries hate? Russia's not involved. When it comes to hockey for Canada and the U.S., as much as the rivalry between Canada and the U.S. is etched in history, right? There's that Canada, Russia, U.S., Russia, do you believe in miracles? That part of what makes hockey so popular is not there.
No, that's true. There are some rivalries that just aren't quite there yet. I'm not 100% sure if Canada, Sweden, or Canada, is the rivalry that everybody thinks it's going to be. That's that, and that's the issue. Is with a tournament like this that comes around so infrequently. Hey, first time ever. It's very hard to drum up any sort of passion for it whatsoever, because it's not the Olympics. It's not the World Hockey Championships or anything like that. This is just, hey, we're not doing an All-Star game this year, but we're doing this instead. Shiny new,
Well, we can't not talk about the Super Bowl.
I mean, we could not talk about it, but that would be doing a disservice to our fans, unfortunately. What did you think of the game?
What I thought of the game was that we saw old-fashioned Super Bowl football, where you have a dominant team and a passive team. This is the way the Super Bowls used to be. We had a good run of like good 10, 12 years where the competitive nature of the game was it existed. There was a competition. That didn't happen in this game. It was basically Philadelphia having their way with Kansas City. And I got to tell you, Aaron, I don't remember the last time I've seen in any game, never mind the Super Bowl, the kind of control an offensive line didn't have against a defensive line.
And I got to say, I was watching at one point, I think I saw 3 or 4 sacks in a row, and it was just like, this is just not looking good. Like, this is almost an embarrassment with how easily this offensive line is being picked apart by the Eagles defense. It almost seemed unfair.
And they didn't blitz. They weren't blitzing. It was just the four-man rush was crippling, Kansas City, and any opportunity for Patrick Mahomes to think about where to pass. He never got a chance to do very many progressions. That's for sure. It was a tough situation for him. Philadelphia has to be congratulated, and some people here on Stream Punk out of Philadelphia must be really thrilled. Another fireworks display that in the final, the NFC final, the people took to the streets, and it was even one guy pointed a gun in the air and he started firing a gun. That and Philly proved the kind of excitement they could generate if they win a championship. It was quite an event after the game. It was quite a game. It just wasn't the kind of game that says to me, I enjoyed that football. And that part of it was disappointment. I was pulling for Kansas City, but regardless of whether you're for them or not, one thing I think most people can agree, it wasn't a real great football game. Only if you were a Philadelphia fan and you're into a trouncing was that a good game.
Yeah, I came to realize early on, because every time I looked back at the TV, it seemed that Philadelphia had succeeded in expanding their lead, and I realized by the time we got to 24-0 at halftime that there was the very distinct possibility that the Chiefs might not actually score any points. Would have been great because I had a 0 in my squares, but it didn't work out in my favor, unfortunately.
Yeah, I didn't do well in the pools, the Super Bowl party pools. No, not at all. Let's go over to talk about the Maple Leafs environmental second line of Nylander, Tavares, and Marner. Didn't do well against the Canucks. They had some success the previous game, but they didn't look like they could do anything in that game.
Yeah, it's an experiment that he's been trying on and off for the past few weeks, and I don't think it's going to work. They only had a 35.65% expected goals for percentage at 5-on-5. That is the lowest of Toronto's 4 lines, and they played over 6 minutes together in their 2-1 loss to the Canucks. By the third period, that experiment was over and done with. Nylander, Tavares, and Marner have contributed over 1/3 of Toronto's points this season, but rarely played together. And I think there's a reason for that. And the reason is all of those guys want the puck, and all of those guys can share the puck, but don't seem to be able to for some odd reason, which is confusing to me. That line should be gangbusters. It should be torching every single opposing line in the league, but it's not. And I'm puzzled as to why. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that, but I hope somebody's got an idea.
I don't think they have anybody on that line who can get into the corner fast enough to start the cycle.
No, I think you may be right.
Talking 2 of the fastest players the Leafs have. So that's a comment about going into the corner to get the puck. None, like Nylander, a bit better than Marner, but that isn't Nylander's strength, right? His strength is to get the puck while he's moving, and moving while he's getting the puck, right?
Yeah, no, that's very true.
So, I just don't think they have the kind of, they need a guy that's going to go in there and get the puck for them and then start the cycle. Marner can carry the puck over the line, but I just don't think with Tavares as the center, and I don't think so. I just don't think they can do it. They've got to set up in the zone. Marner and Nylander by themselves can monopolize the puck and carry it around in the zone and avoid the competition, anybody, and do a great job at doing that. But with Tavares on the line, it seems like they're having difficulty doing that, Aaron.
I think they have a problem in that there isn't anybody to go into the corners for the puck to get it for them so that they can then start having fun wheeling and dealing with it. We've talked about this before. They need a digger, they need a rigger, and they need a trigger. And with that line, you've got Tavares, who usually plays the bumper right in front
They're
of
all
the net.
triggers.
And yeah, exactly. And then there's very little.
Marner's a rigger, but to
Yeah.
use your term.
But it's I appreciate the willingness to experiment. Don't get me wrong, but it's one of those things where I think it's had its day. I think they need to try to. I think they need to try to reconfigure.
Of course, the biggest problem with professional sports is you have to have a system, but that system has to be able to be executed by the players you have. You can't just come up with a system and go, okay, guys, now we're playing this. There has to be a little bit of a consideration for the abilities and the tenacity of the players in regards to how they perform best. It has to reflect their strengths, So that's the bad news. It doesn't look like that line's going to, I agree, it doesn't look like it's going to be successful. But I got to tell you, at least the goaltending now is kind of back to a place where the Leaf fans feel comfortable. I think the coaching staff feels comfortable. And I think the GM's not looking for another goaltender to play goal with the Maple Leafs.
No, I think they really do have their tandem locked in, which is not a bad thing. And it's been a while, Unfortunately, Murray is not a cure-all. He's a backup at best. So the fact that Woll and Stolarz have finally come back does mean that the Leafs actually have a tandem that doesn't give me the heebie-jeebies every time they go out on the ice. So that's one of the good things. When Stolarz came back against the Kraken on Thursday, there was obviously some genuine concern, mainly because he hadn't played since December 12th. That's 50 plus days. Knee injury that required surgery. Questions as to whether or not he would be 100% mobile. Obviously, those were answered. He stopped 26 of 27 shots, got his save percentage up to .929, and is 10-5-2 so far this season. So, there's a sigh of relief there at least. And Woll seems to have been fully recovered. He doesn't seem to be as prone to injury as he has been in the past. And, with Hildeby down on the Marlies, I don't feel nearly as bad leaving Matt Murray down there and bringing him up.
Let's talk about the Habs. The Lightning beat them. The Lightning have had a good week or so with Canadian teams beating Ottawa twice and now Montreal once. Those games in hand now are allowing, Tampa to find a greater position in the standings, especially in the Atlantic Division. They're right behind the Leafs now, and they put Ottawa behind them. And over the years, it's been the Florida teams that have given the Leafs the biggest trouble and given the division the hardest battle. Boston, another team that was a tough team, not doing so much. But this Tampa Bay team is doing really well, and they did it to Montreal, who are having and struggling.
Yeah, 7-2-1 in their last. 2-7-1. Let's not be too optimistic here. 2-7-1 in their last 10 for the Habs, losing 3 in a row. Nick Paul, Braden Point, Zemgus Girgensons, and Anthony Cirelli all scored for Tampa Bay. Victor Hedman had a goal and an assist. That sends Montreal into a 2-week break now, down 5. Down a whole bunch of games in the standings. Brendan Gallagher at least scored 2 goals, and Kristen Dvorak added 1 for Montreal. This is their 3rd straight and 8th loss in 9 games now. Jakob Dobas was pulled early in the second period after allowing 3 goals on 8 shots. Sam Montembeau stopped 11 of 12 in relief, but unfortunately the damage had already been done by then. So this is a chance for the Habs to take time off, lick their wounds, try to address the issues that have been going on. Kucherov was without, Tampa Bay was without Kucherov, but he is listed as day-to-day with an upper body injury. I think it's important to note as well here, Frank, that the NHL has said that this 2-week break does not constitute a break in teams' abilities to trade. They can still continue to do so over the next 2 weeks leading up to the trade deadline.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
You could go to this event, be on one team, come back to another.
Exactly.
Ooh.
Which makes things a little more interesting.
Does. Speaking of interesting, to Chuck, Kachuk, the Kachuk that's in Florida is having a good season, and he's running really well right now. His team, again, we talked about the Leafs having trouble with the 2 Florida teams. His, of course, is the Panthers.
Yeah, so Kachuk scored for a 6th consecutive game and added 2 assists. That was all part of a 4-goal second period that lifted the Florida Panthers to a 5-1 win over the Sens on Saturday. Barkov had a goal and an assist, while Sam Bennett, Gustav Forsling, and Anton Lundell also scored for the Panthers. Bobrovsky had 26 saves to win for the 5th time in their last 6 games. The only reply from Ottawa, Matthews' brother Brady, and they managed to get 43 saves out of Linus Ullmark. This is the 3rd time the Kachuk brothers have had goals in the same game. Ottawa's now dropped 3 straight and given up at least 4 goals in all 3 of these losses. That is definitely not good. Florida had a 4-goal period for the 4th time this season. Did it against Boston on October, Carolina in November, and San Jose on January 25th. So, this Panthers team is a team that can score in bunches, and unfortunately, this Sens team is one that has a tendency to pull up the sidewalk and go home for certain periods. So this is going to be something that they're going to need to address. This is also the 5th time that Matty Tkachuk has had 3 points in a game against his brother. So that's another thing. Ottawa might try benching Brady the next time just to see if that changes.
Oh, I have an observation, whether it's factual or not, people can think about themselves. It seems to me the Ottawa Senators will be looking down the schedule to see when they play the Leafs again, because it seems every time they play the Leafs, they beat them, and they play real well after that for a while until that wears off. So you need another fix of playing the Maple Leafs to raise their confidence. It's funny, but it seems to me that's usually when they get up for the games against the Leafs, and then they win, and it holds them up for a while. But then the further away they get from having played that game against the Leafs, the worse they start to play. So it's interesting. But we all know that sports are emotional.
Oh, 100% emotional. Those Leafs games and those Leafs wins are the shot in the arm that they need. Same thing goes for Buffalo. Toronto rarely wins in Buffalo. The Leafs go down. They lose. The Sabres play decent for a little bit, and then everything goes back in the tank again. So we'll see.
Absolutely. Velarde scores twice. The Jets top the Islanders for 8th straight win. The Jets are a real streaky winning team. I like their chances, man. If they can do this in the playoffs, they could end up to the Stanley Cup, and that would be awesome. I can't think of a team I'd want more in the Stanley Cup more than the Jets of the Canadian teams. That's what I want to see. I'm hoping to see at least one Canadian team in the Stanley Cup. I'd like to see one win it. That's where I'm at. And all year the Jets have given me the feeling, Aaron, that they could do it because they can string together wins.
Well, that's the great thing. In their last 10, they're 8-2-0. So that's an 8-game win streak that has now put them back on top of the NHL, 1 point ahead of the Washington Capitals. Velarde had 2, which is really awesome. 4-3 final. So, it was the Islanders had 35 shots on goal to Winnipeg's 27. That made things a little bit interesting. But Hellebuck again stood on his head. I think that guy's running for he's gunning for a 930 or 935 save percentage
He's
this year.
amazing.
It's unbelievable.
He's going to be tough to beat for Team Canada. I don't think there's any doubt that he's going to be the U.S. goalie. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
No, not at all.
Yeah, like him, great goaltender. They have goaltending. They got a bit of edge to their game, and they can score and they can skate. All things that come in handy when you're playing in the playoffs. And Jets fans, if you're excited about your team, you have every right to be, because I think you've got a really good team there. Let's talk about another good team, one that has more of the flash, more of the cachet, the Edmonton Oilers. Tell us about them and their recent games.
So unfortunately, Marty Nakash broke a tie with a game-winning goal late in the third period. The Avs beat the Oilers on Friday, 5-4. Nate the Great set up Nakash for the goal. Pickard, unfortunately, wasn't able to make it across the crease in time. You always need your big guys playing their best, and they were battling it out hard. I believe the Avalanche were actually on the second half of a back-to-back as well, which made things a little more difficult. Cale Makar, who's going to be representing Canada at the Four Nations playoffs, had 2 goals and an assist, and Arturi Lehkonen had a goal and an assist. They've won 4 of their last 5, and Mackenzie Blackwood has been really solid backing them up.
That's fantastic for them. Let's talk a little bit about the Flames. They're a team that they are. They're on the bubble to making the playoffs. They're battling it out with Vancouver, and the more Vancouver plays Toronto, the less chance that Calgary has to make it to the playoffs, because Calgary can't beat Toronto, but Vancouver can.
Yeah, Calgary's 4-5-1 in their last 10. They managed to pull one out in overtime. Sorry, they managed to drop another one in overtime. Matty Beniers actually got the overtime winner for the Seattle Kraken. 1 point behind Los Angeles for third place in the Pacific a week ago. The Flames are now limping into the 2-week hiatus, 3 points back of the Canucks for the second wildcard berth in the Western Conference. 10 games in 17 nights is a bit of a grind. 6 of Calgary's last 7 games leading into the break were actually at Saddledome. They were 15-6-3 on home ice before this stretch, but it's not looking so good afterwards.
No.
It's an opportunity, I think, for them to try to lick their wounds as well, and to try to figure out a way to stay out of the box. They killed off 3 penalties in the first period, including a 1 minute and 22 second 2-man advantage while the game was scoreless. They've got to figure out a way to clean that stuff up. Otherwise, it's just going to come back and bite them in the butt.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the Canucks. And you talked about them finding a groove. And coincidentally, that groove seemed to have started when they played the Maple Leafs.
Yeah. Demko pulled himself after 10 minutes in the first period on Saturday. Rick Tocchet said, no, it's not his knee. That was what knocked him out of their lineup for a month last spring. Then it took him out of the playoffs after just 1 game, and then kept him off the ice again until December. He was facing one of those injuries that nobody else seemed to have had, except I think 1 or 2 maybe soccer players, which was rather interesting to me. The Canucks, interestingly enough, are 3-0-1 since Hughes has been sidelined, and have managed to outscore their opponents 9-5. That is, one of those things that you kind of have to look at and go, huh. Now, the team was also trending in a positive direction even before the JT Miller trade and before they got the other 2 Pedersons. So they find themselves in a really interesting position here, but I'm glad to see that they're finding their way through it.
No, the 3 Petes are working out well. It didn't work out well for Kansas City. That's where we started the story. Let's not end it now. Let's talk a little bit about the players the Leafs are sending to this All-Star break. Who needs to be there? Who needs to establish something? And who needs to just ride it and get back healthy?
I think it's not really any long stretch here to say that. Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, and William Nylander all need to try to make sure that they ride it out successfully. I don't think any of us wants to see them hurt.
But whose game can improve? What would this adventure help them. I'm saying Austin Matthews. Maybe I'll be more obvious. I think Marner and Nylander, good or bad in this series, I don't think matters to them when they come back. But I do think it's going to matter to Austin Matthews because he has had a real dry stretch. It would be great for him if he had a good series wearing the C for his home country and be good and be able to score again. So he needs it more than any of the Leafs that are going out to this event. Of the other three Leafs playing, he's the guy that needs the most to make this work out.
Yeah, no, this, I mean, if he plays his cards right, this could be the reset that he actually needs. I think he just needs a little bit of time away from the Maple Leafs in general. But him, Mitchie, Willie, yeah, those guys are going to be in tough. This is actually another opportunity for Mitch if he does well to bank a little more stock when it comes to renegotiating. As for Willie, I'd like to see him get a bit of his mojo back as well. There is the very distinct possibility playing for Sweden, he might get a little bit of his swagger back, and that's never a bad thing. But I'm just concerned with Austin maybe trying to overdo it a little too much, especially if he's trying to get his groove back.
I still think the problem is the C effect. I think the C effect is very real, and there's players who can wear the C and be great, and then there are players who are weighed down by the C. I don't know if Matthews is that guy, the weighed down one. We're going to find out with the U.S. team having a team around him that I think is a good shot to win this tournament, especially with the goaltending they've got. It's going to be interesting, and the Leafs do need him to play better, and I think they're hoping he doesn't get injured and finds his game under a different set of circumstances that aren't regular season games with the Maple Leafs.
Oh, for sure. Like I said, it's a chance for a reset. I think it's a chance that every player would like to have, an opportunity every player would like to have. And you know what? For those players that need to score their way out of a slump, which is what I think Matthews needs to do, at the same time, for the rest of the Toronto players, this is an opportunity for them to get back to where they need to be physically.
Absolutely. Thanks for doing this, Aaron.
Not a problem, Frank.
He's Aaron William Freeland. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. If you want to check out some of the other stuff we do, check out Candid Frank Stanisci on YouTube, 10:30. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.